this is Hold the Truth Hostage, where if the truth was so important, we wouldn't negotiate with lies and hold the truth hostage. Now, I received a link by a subscriber, subscriber who got me started on actually posting a lot more, by the name of C.1, really got me inspired to do more. I was hopping on and off on a lot of red pill channels, Coach Greg Adams, Anthony Spade. I think, one thing I respect about Coach, he's doing more interviews. And in actuality, that's what more MGTOW channels need to do, more interviews with other channels, red pill and so on. Now, C.1 sent me a documentary called Divorce Corp. Now, I watched Divorce Corp, and it confirmed a huge theory I've been working on, and it took me years, and it took, in the words of Kenji MGTOW, thank God for MGTOW, and I'm not much of a religious person, but it took MGTOW to open my eyes on this one. Now, a lot of people are talking about the police defunding, the police abolishing the police, and so on. Now, a lot of people think, this is good, this is bad. A lot of, we're in an emotion-filled society. So a lot of, like I tell people, if you want to see what your emotions, put your hands over your eyes, and you'll see with your emotions. Feelings are, your feelings are blind. A lot of people feel a certain way about the whole defund the police, and some states are trying to abolish it and so on. Now, what I'm going to touch up on, and this video is going to be, it's going to be long. It's going to be a very long video, depending on how long it's going to take me to explain this. But I'm going to explain to you that we've been living in a police state. In fact, no, yeah, for lack of better words, because, in fact, I can't say we've been living in a government state, but police state sounds better, I guess. Now, a lot of police officers right now are leaving their jobs. Some are quitting, and some were doing their job and so on. I plan to do a video that focuses more on the police, but a lot of police are leaving their jobs. A lot are quitting and so on. And a lot of them think, it's due to the animosity towards the police with, I won't say the name of the full thing, but with BLM, a lot of, with the Black Lives Matter, a lot of people think it's because of that and all that situation. But in actuality, it's the government ramping up a way to utilize the funds to pay for, their socialist agenda, and their agenda to reward bad behavior, reward the destruction of the family and what they perceive to be what they wanted. A lot of that money from defunding the police is going to go towards a lot of government programs, government assistance, and, promoting government dependency. That's where a lot of that money is going to. That was used to overfund the police and overfund a lot of government, government stuff. Now, this video is going to focus on, a lot of people think, it took COVID to make us be in a police state. But in reality, we've been in a police state. And it's not really, I'm not using the police because the police are the, the rulers, and we've been under their, under their power. That's not why. It's just, for lack of a better term, we've been on a government state. Let me just use, we've been on a police state, for lack of better words. Now, when did this start? This all started, there's a lot of white people don't get that the black neighborhood and the black community and minorities, mostly the black community, is the testing grounds. So the government did a lot of testing. They always test something in the black community before they use it on the white community. Tuskegee experiments where they experimented on black people and all on. And the other thing is they've been experimenting on people. They've had psychedelic drugs that were experimented on white people. There's always been that, but let me not get lost. But the truth is this: we've been in a police state since 1920. It was planned to be in a police state. Now, when it really took off, when we've been in a police state since the signing of no-fault divorce. Since the signing of no-fault divorce, we were in a police state. The reason I bring that up, a lot of people look at it, we're in a police state when when the police are walking around your neighborhood telling you when to go to sleep, when giving you curfews and so on. No, that's not when we're in a police state. We're in a police state once you, as a man, have lost your authority in society. That's when we're in a police state. So in the 1920s, they gave women the right to vote, which isn't a negative. Women should be able to vote so they can, tell their issues and what's going on, so they can reveal certain perspectives that men aren't looking at, which is positive. But I mentioned this on a previous video, but they left the major loophole. The big loophole was, and remember, the majority, there's a lot of MGTOW guys and red pill guys that like to demonize women. They like to talk like women did all the wrong. Women are wrong. They're the ones who did this and that. In actuality, no. Women have, in all honesty, if you look at it from a logical perspective, they've done nothing wrong. They never have done anything wrong. They've only done what the opportunity the government run by men have given them, have rewarded them, what is it, anonymity, I forget, But think about this, 1920, the majority of the government, and it still is, the majority of the government was men, Men were the governing body and always is. You got to remember that the definition of a government is a group of men getting together and agreeing on certain things. That's the biggest problem, is that a lot of men don't understand. They speak about the government like the government's some type of magical entity or something like that. No, the government is a group of men agreeing on certain terms and certain rules to abide by that form of society. That's what the government is. Now, in 1920, the government and a lot of men in the government pushed and allowed and pushed for, because a lot of the biggest flaw with feminism is feminists talk like they fought wars and fought for their rights. You didn't fight for nothing. You were protesting here and there, and you got your rights given without knowing that an agenda was fueling your rights. And the thing about the difference between feminism and female rights is that you gotta look at it like this: the government allows, female rights are allowed. You march and so on, but they're allowed. Basically, you gotta look at it like this, and and a lot of women notice that their rights are like allowance. They're allowed. A lot of the feminists that are mentally lost, and there's no repairing their brain or their mindset. They actually believe they fought and oneness and that. No, you were allowed your rights. You didn't earn them through blood. You didn't fight like the men that built this country, that died for independence from Britain. You didn't die like the men who marched and you gotta notice this about civil rights. A lot of men died. Men usually fight or die for their rights. Where while women, on the other hand, it's usually, they're given or allowed. Now, let me get away from ranting or losing what I'm talking about. So, like I was stating, in 1920, a lot of men and in the government pushed and allowed female voting rights. The reason they allowed female voting rights was that the government needed a loophole. They needed to create a voter that needed their allowance. You see, you have to remember the definition of government is a group of men getting together and agreeing on certain things. Now, what the government feared, and it to this day it still fears, that's why MGTOW and red pill channels are being attacked and so on, is because you're a government. You're a group of men, though you've come together online for the most part, you're a government. You're a group of men that agree on certain things and certain rules and regulations. So you're a government. You're a real threat. You're a real threat because a man doesn't need the government or its allowance. You know, you know what I mean? So now the loophole in 1920 was set up was that the government could get votes from a certain sex. All they had to do was appeal to a certain sex to get the votes they needed. As in, for example, if the government could get, let's say, 550,000 men voted and 790,000 women voted, all the government cared about was appealing to a certain sex. So if they could get more women votes than male votes, that's all they would need. So, now it didn't kick off in 1920. Okay, women could vote, but it wasn't kicking off. It wasn't moving as fast and have as much effect as the government wanted. The whole goal of the government giving a female vote, besides that loophole of having to just appeal to one sex to get everything passed when it came to voting, was that the government wanted to remove female dependency on their man, their husband, their boyfriend, whatever you want to call it. They wanted to remove that dependency. The government should be your first priority as a woman, is depending on the government. That's how it should be. You shouldn't be depending on your husband. You shouldn't be depending on your brother. You shouldn't be depending on any male except the government. That's what the government's ultimate goal. So 1920, female votes are allowed, and it's given. Now, it wasn't used as much. Women still depended on their husbands and male family members. So now you fast forward, let's go to 1942. Now, 1942, a lot of men go to war, and this is you got to understand, this is all pre-planned. Having men gone to war and now women are working, the government gets women to taste taste that independence that comes from working for themselves. So a lot of women enter the working field. Now, some of the stuff I might be wrong on, you can always Google and fact check. We're in the internet age. Anything you feel I'm wrong on, you can always fact check on the internet. So now, 1942, women are working. And they get that taste for working. Now, a lot of the men come back from the war and their wives are working. And, and they got that taste for working. And a lot of government, a lot of jobs learned. There was a lot of prejudice when it came to jobs. You know, they only wanted men to work. But the employers soon figured out that, damn, if we had women working along with men, we can actually alter and affect how much the pay rate is. You know, by hiring more women, we could keep the rate a little lower. You know, because they're just so happy working. You know, and being, and their thing is about being independent. You know, it's not about understanding that you want to provide and make more money, and the competitiveness that comes from being a male. So 1940, you know, after the war, and now the government, the greatest thing the government realized from this, from World War II, is that, damn, a lot of the men were dying and going to war. This is why the female vote is so important, because men go to war and men die. But our female voters, if we could just get the female voters moving, we could have a dependent voter, because naturally, instinctively, women will depend more and need protection and safety, because at the end of the day, they instinctively and genetically and honestly know they need protection. They need organized men, because the biggest threat to them is unorganized and renegade men. And the only way to stop unorganized renegade men is with an organized men, you know, government, you know, an organized group of men to protect them. You know what I mean? So the government saw that, you know, women got to work in a little more after 1942, after the war. Now, fast forward to the 50s, and I'm going to link aspect to a video that shows you. Now, 1950, you know, the feminist group, the funny thing about feminism is they don't understand. A lot of feminism is actually fueled and pushed by men with an agenda, you know, the government, because the government fears and doesn't like men having authority, because if men have authority, it would mean they would have to actually work and actually be honest with what they're doing. And the government doesn't like being honest, and the government doesn't want to work or be truly effective. It's all about a class system, and not a class system when it comes to race. And that whole racial class thing is BS, you know. I'll cover that on another video, but the government basically likes this. There's two classes they like, in the government and outside of government. That's it. That's what it is. Now, I would go into another detail later on. That's another video. But now you fast forward, the government passes the law that effectively kills male authority. And that's the no-fault divorce. Because the government wants to remove male authority. And that, as soon as no-fault divorce passed, 1950s, whatever, that's when we started living in a police state. Now, police state, a lot of people think, oh, the police are in charge. No, a police state is that the police are enforcing what the government deems how things should be. That's why when people blame the cops, I've done security work for a long time. You're going to blame the security guard for protecting or securing or patrolling a location you don't like. It has nothing to do with the security guard. Just like the police, when they patrol or, are working, you can't be mad at the cops when the person employing them is the governing body. So we entered a police state in the 1940s, 1950s. And in the 1950s, two things were passed. Now, of course, the one that affected a lot of white people and a lot of people look at is now no-fault divorce was passed in 1950.
They get divorced. Since I started in 1949, when I passed a wedding, I think to myself, that's inventory.
The statistics are that more money passes through family law court than all the other courts combined.
The more you charge, the more people are willing to pay because they feel that money equals skill.
You know, we aren't much different from any other segment of society in terms of money calling the shots.
I've had cases where they've spent $20 million in fees.
The real standard is how much money can we make off these people? That's the standard.
There's an expression that people can get as much justice as they can afford, and that most people cannot afford any justice at all.
You know, what's wrong with that? It's a business. This is a business. This is not social services.
The biggest single reason for divorce in this country is marriage.
Each year, about 4 million people get married in the U.S. Although some people plan for months, a basic marriage ceremony can be completed in 10 minutes. All that's really required is proof of age and a $50 fee for a marriage license. But getting divorced is far from easy.
Litigation lasted for over a year.
17 months for a 23-month marriage.
We were only married for a year. We've been going through our divorce for a year and a half now.
I was married only 4 months, and my divorce has lasted now over 6.5 years.
I'll be close to 8 years.
8 years.
Why is divorce so difficult? Marriage in the U.S. was once considered a lifetime commitment, and divorce was something that regular folks just didn't do.
Back then, divorce was considered dirty, both for the people getting a divorce and for the lawyers handling it.
There could not be a divorce unless there was fault. Fault usually was either adultery or cruelty, which was the word for abuse.
But the feminist movement of the 1960s began to change the way Americans viewed women in the home and in the workplace. Activists considered marriage a low-paying job, a trap that you couldn't escape. Because proving fault created such a barrier to divorce, in 1969, then Governor of California Ronald Reagan responded to increasing political pressure by signing the first No-Fault Divorce Act. The concept quickly spread to most of the other 49 states.
The divorce revolution, the great increase in divorce that happened in the 70s, happened in part because of no fault.
Although
now you have to remember, around that time, the black family was actually had a higher marriage rate than the white family. You know, so they passed no-fault divorce. You know, a lot of people think, you know, it's for feminism, fuel feminism. And even if the black community had a higher marriage rate in the 50s and so on, they were what, 15% or so of the population. So even if you have a higher rate in marriage in the black community than the white community, as a whole, there would be more married white people than black people because they were the majority of the population. Now, you had the no-fault divorce, which allows, you know, women to, you know, initiate divorce. And then you have the creation of the family court, which is designed to extract money and resources from the man and, most importantly, destroy that unification of marriage, you know, that stability. Because you have to understand that marriage threatens dependency on the government. You know, a woman that's married isn't good to the government because guess what? She's depending on her husband. She's looking at her husband as a priority. Then she's looking at the government. So the government needed to get rid of marriage. That's why you got no-fault divorce. That's why you don't have any changes or any legal fixes with the, you know, with the marriage. You know, y'all seriously go watch. I was sent this by C.1, one of subscribers. Watch Divorce Corp. It's a great documentary, Divorce Corp. Now, marriage threatens the dominance of the government, you know. So now another thing, just to go back, is that another big issue that the government hates is the extended family. Now, a lot of people like to think that the nuclear family is a positive. The nuclear family is a positive and was always a positive. No, the nuclear family is a negative. It is not a positive. It's not a positive that a child grows up around just mom and dad with no access to their extended family. The reason it's not a positive is this, is that when a child grows up with just mom and dad, now even in the 50s where, you know, there was less access to public schools and there was still more kids being homeschooled, or even before the 50s, the reason a nuclear family, and listen to what it's called, nuclear family. The reason a nuclear family is bad is that a child growing up, the parents of that child do not remember who they were when they were that child's age. As in a nuclear family, a mother raising her child cannot pinpoint where the child is more like her or more like the dad until that child is about 12 or 11. Because we don't remember who we are. We don't remember who we were until age 11 or 12. That's when we remember who we are. Before then, a lot of things are blurry. But our grandparents know. Our grandparents know who our mother and who our dads were, you know, from growing up because, you know, they raised them and watched them. So a nuclear family was designed to remove the influence of your extended family. You see, now if you had an extended family, let's say, you know, your mom's going somewhere, your grandpa and grandma, while they're watching you, they can identify key characteristics in you that mirror your mother and father. So you're 5 years old, grandma's watching you. Oh my God, he giggles, he runs around, or she giggles and runs around just like her mom or dad, whatever. So they can maintain and pinpoint the path you're going towards that resembles more of your parents, and they can keep you on that track from age birth to about age 11. Your grandparents can identify key features and characteristics in you that mirror your parents, you know. Now, by not having your grandma, grandfather, and your extended family, you grow up without a path, a direction. So at the age of you know, age, let's say 1 to about 11, you don't have anyone pinpointing and telling you. For example, if you have your extended family, your grandma and grandfather talking to you, they can tell you, hey, you run around, you play, you move, you're stubborn just like your father or your mother. So you can look and say, oh man, I'm just gonna be just like my mom and just like my pops. And another thing your extended family does, grandma and grandpa, you know, great uncles and so on, is they filter you from society. So instead of your child just sitting watching TV all day, grandma might teach your kid how to cook. Grandpa might teach your kid how to build something in the, you know, woods or something. They filter and instill certain habits in you that keep you away from the TV and entertainment. You see? And the government doesn't like, it grew to not like the extended family. That's why it promoted the nuclear family years later. You know, you should throw away your grandparents and just, you know, a successful family is the nuclear family, where it's just mom and dad going to work, or even if mom's in the household while dad works, it's not about grandma and all of them being there and helping raise that kid. You know, they don't like the extended family. You know, but let me get back. So like I said, now the 1950s was when we were into a police state. The reason for this is that, like I was saying, they passed a no-fault divorce, so it's easier now. Remember, women operate more on their feelings. Once no-fault divorce was added, it was all about when she was going to divorce you. It wasn't about why. By giving her, a lot of people need to understand, and I'm going to start doing this too. I'm going to start cutting up pieces of my video, which I call dropping gems. I'm going to be dropping a lot of gems, and this one's a big gem. The big gem is this: love cannot sustain a relationship. A long-term relationship cannot exist through love. Love is about maintaining a certain state of emotion and attraction. You can't have a relationship built on that. Now, love could be used to as an introduction to the relationship. It could start through love. But love can't be used to maintain that relationship. I love her. I think about her every day. I think about her every day, every moment. My heart aches and burns for her warmth. Had to put some of that Antonio Banderas in my voice. But like I said, love can't maintain a relationship. Respect can. Respect and trust is what forms a long-term relationship. Now, once they added no-fault divorce, it was all about how long can your wife love you. You know, the relationship became not about respect and trust. It became about maintaining that high of love and that rush, and maintaining that emotion called love. You see, before no fault divorce, a woman respected and 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 that's how her relationship was built on respect and trust for her man. As in, you know, we might not be in love like we started, but I respect and we have a routine. You see, a man can only lead a relationship when it's led through respect and trust. It's not love. Love is an emotion, and love actually kills a relationship, you know? Now, a relationship should be built on respect and trust, because you respect and trust is what you get through a routine. A lot of MGTOW and some red pill guys and some people in general like to pick on a man. His dream was that white picket fence, living in a location that's predictable. The great thing about having predictability is a routine can be established. You can trust that things are going to happen at this time and when and where. That's what being a man is about. It's all about routine. It's about establishing a routine so you can plan for things you can build on top of that. If I know when I wake up at 6 p.m. the bus will be there at 6:30, I can plan for that, what I'm going to do when that bus arrives or before it arrives. And that's what a long-term relationship is about: routine. When there's routine in the relationship, it'll last, because that man and woman can predict what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, you know? And then you could add some excitement here and there with some surprise vacations or surprise things. But it's all about maintaining that routine.